All right, so I saw this story, and I feel like I have to just like kind of start this whole thing up with this. So a couple in Virginia, right? Imagine this: you go and you shop for a house, and it's like October. Golfing season's like kind of like on the like down low. Not everyone's like golfing. You find your dream home. You fall in love with the freaking place. You buy it. The next summer, golf balls are hitting your house, breaking your windows, busting up siding. This couple bought a house, unbeknownst to them, was located right next to a golf course. First of all, how dumb are you to not know that there's a golf course next to your house in your backyard? Second, they sued the golf course and somehow won for damages because they like for like 3 years they like raised their two daughters in this house and like they were like, oh, we couldn't go outside and barbecue and sit in our backyard because like they were like right on like a par five, and everyone's trying to reach it in two, and they're just spraying three woods 30 yards across the course and just hitting their backyard. The photo on the it was like it wasn't the Associated Press. It was like a smaller like paper. Literally just showed the two of them with like a depressed face in their backyard with a Tupperware of a golf ball, like a giant like silicone tub.
Would they look like American Gothic?
The best way the best way I could describe them was they look like the couple from the like that painting with the pitchfork.
Yeah, the American Gothic.
Oh, all right, then yeah. Sorry, I'm no Van Gogh, I'm no Mona Lisa Vito, but
now
clearly I don't know painting.
I would have, if I were them, I would have also sued the realtor, because if the realtor didn't like when they're showing this house, like,
well,
why would you not like disclose that information?
Based on the photo, though, you can clearly see there's a green in their backyard behind the fence. Like very clearly, you could see it.
So like there's a green, then there's a fence,
no,
and then the house.
So like the way the photo described was like the top part of the deck is like 20 feet up, and then it's like a staircase going down.
Okay.
And so up on that like ledge, you can clearly see over the wood fence that there is a green.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like there's a green, then there's the fence, and then it's the house.
Probably like 20, 30 yards off.
So the fence like kind of like separates.
Yeah. But like also like golf course like regulations, and actually I googled it, in the area do require that the green to the house, like the property line, must be 30 feet off. So realistically, the golf course is actually they're in standards. So like they meet requirements, but they won because apparently it's like emotional damages that they like weren't able to fully live their life. So like now I'm thinking, do I buy a house on a golf course just sue the place?
Only in Virginia.
Only Virginia. Hey, Virginia's for lovers. Don't forget.
Yes, and not golf courses.
Or actually, no, it's for lovers, but not lovers of golf courses.
Valid.
So
that's
wild. Just
what a loophole.
Funny story. I thought that was just over the top ridiculous. What's even more ridiculous is that somehow, for some godforsaken reason, I guess the Greg Norman like documentary was like so good on ESPN. And like all of a sudden, like 70 people were like, "Hey, let's join this LIV golf league. Let's go to London for a golf event." Well, we're going to get into all that. This is the Get in the Hole podcast, brought to you by our good friends Tomahawk Shades, B&Yo Boards, you name it. They're all over the place, and of course, Kenwood Beer, which we're going to shout them out later. We got a lot of picks for arguably the worst field in golf history. Stephen McAvoy here, joining me, KB, and Max Schreiber joining the desk one more time. He'll be on more often than not. Follow Max. What's your Twitter handle for the follows?
It is Max Schreiber 13.
Yes, sir. He's on Twitter at Max Schreiber 13, and of course our boy KB on Twitter at KBizzle. What's the number?
KBIZZL311. Shout out AOL Instant Messenger.
That was your AOL name?
That was my AIM screen name back in the day, and it transferred to being my Twitter handle. So,
no, hold on, KB. Were you old enough for like MySpace? Like, was that like your?
I was, but I wasn't allowed to have one.
Margie didn't let it happen.
I was mid 2000s, like 2007. I got a Facebook.
I'm pretty sure oh God, I had to have been like 8, something like that. Probably like 2009, I think it was probably.
I got a Facebook strictly to play Farmville and Fishville.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fishville I never heard of. Farmville though was the game.
Fishville was
Actually, you want
awesome.
to laugh? Well, ever since the platform that you can get the game off of, like Zynga, was like purchased by I think like Epic Games, and like you could download Farmville on your computer. And I got really bored one day at work, and I may or may not have downloaded it, and I was like, this is too much time and effort to play this game, so I stopped playing. But
Life was so simple back in the day.
it really was. You wake up in the morning, you post your like for TBH and rate, and you went to go play some Farmville. Max, you were definitely the kind of kid that was like always on Facebook, like like for TBH.
I was the opposite.
To be honest, you're cool.
Whenever someone posted one, I was definitely like, oh yeah, like give me one, but I never actually did it.
That's just a freaking lie. You were like the guy to be like, yo, man.
Go back. You can check the
comment for a rate, and then like,
he said, Max, you can check my memories.
You know what? Fine. I'm gonna go all the way back in your archive Facebook messages.
Oh my god, I have some.
Dude, you find some weird ass stuff. Yeah, no, like you find some weird ass stuff on your Facebook. Like I get like memories and like things I posted when I was in like middle school. And I'm like, oh, delete. I'm like, I can't. There's just cringy shit.
I keep mine. Most of mine are just Lil Wayne lyrics.
Well, you. Hopefully no profanities. You know, Josh Hader got called out for that. Like,
oh no, we kept it clean. We kept the cool Lil Wayne lyrics that it was like, yo, that's a fire hook.
Like real G's moving silence like lasagna.
That like lyrics from like right above it when he was in prison. Like,
probably. Oh god, there was one song that he did. Oh, it was the Like a Boss remix. I remember like that. That was like big in middle school because everyone loved Rick Ross, and my teacher was like 80 years old, and so a kid in the back of the room would always go, huh. And she was like, what's that noise?
We were in middle school listening to Meek Mill mixtapes. And then I was in high school listening to J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar mixtapes.
The big mixtapes when I was in middle school was Wiz Khalifa. Like Taylor Alderdice was one of the biggies.
That was a big one. That was like, what, 2010?
Yeah. The Dreamville albums. No, Dreamville? No, not Dreamville. That's J. Cole. What's the... Oh, Dream Chasers from Meek Mill. That was really good.
House Party.
Yeah, House Party. The House Party remix with Mac Miller, though. That one hit.
Man, Meek in middle school, like we would be doing like the gym day stuff, and you'd be like running around like certain area, and we just found Meek Mill mixtapes, and we were blasting that in like 7th grade.
The gym day stuff. What was the best sport or event that you played in elementary school gym? Elementary, like middle school. Max, please jump in. You're kind of quiet in the conversation.
My bad. I don't know. We used to play this game called Mat Ball, and it was really stupid because it was just kickball, but you had to go around twice.
That sounds like torture.
I mean, like we used to have a hockey like section like for like 2 weeks, and we play hockey, and all the girls would like be off in the corner because they didn't want to play. And I remember all the guys, because we wanted to emulate like Yarmir Yager back in the day. We used to take the plastic like sticks and bend the head all the way down so you can get a mad cup. It was amazing. It was.
That's why
wild.
You didn't get new textbooks every year.
Yeah, no, they spend too much on plastic hockey sticks. But also, of course, there was the famed Fitness Gram Pacer test.
I like. Everyone talks about. I don't remember doing that.
Are you kidding me?
Like, I don't remember that at all. Like, I remember it on like TV shows and like people talking about. I don't remember ever doing that once.
It was probably like first of all, it was one of the most grimacing experiences in my life, considering I'm fat. So I was one of the kids that like only got to like 30. But then then there was like the kids like 85, 90. There was one girl who actually went. She played D1 soccer. I think at like Louisville. She like broke the New York State record in 4th grade for the picture test. I'm like, what the hell? And like people like came to watch her do it and like make sure it was legit.
That's insane.
It was so weird because we did it. And then, like, after school, she got, like, invited to, like, do it in front of, like, a panel of people. I'm like, who's, like, marking off 4th grade running times in the pacer test? It made no sense to me.
That's insane.
It was so stupid. Oh, my God. All right, you know what? Let's get off the BS. Let's talk about the stuff in the golf world, which actually matters a lot more. The Zurich Classic this past week, one of the premier events in the team style, which you don't usually see very often, a event unlike most, down in New Orleans, which I found out about 5 minutes ago was not called in Music City. What is like New Orleans called? Like, what's the thing? I know like Bourbon Street, but like
They have like the French Quarter.
it's just NOLA to me. Like I don't know anything else.
Jazz.
Yeah, but like
The Big Easy. I knew that.
oh, all right, yeah, the Big Easy.
It's the Big Easy.
So the Big Easy. Also, first of all, speaking of jazz, why they're called the Utah Jazz is beyond
Shout
me.
out B movie.
There's no jazz in Utah. Jazz belongs in NOLA. Anyways, different
So you
story.
like jazz?
You like jazz? All right, anyways, so the Zurich Classic this past week, as the banner below says quite clearly, me and John called it a Mickey Mouse event last week. Kind of, sort of was, considering the outcomes. Of course, Patrick Cantlay and Xander Schauffele take home the big win, cashed me in for a nice $65 payout. That's now, I think, like $140 I've made in golf winnings in my career. Full frontal. I never bet on any of my beer money picks, even though most of them hit. I've only ever bet on the live bet Matsuyama at the Sony Open, and this one that managed to hit. Otherwise, I've lost basically everything. The one bet I did take, well, actually no, there was all the Masters bets that I took, but the worst one ever was the one time that I bet like Emiliano Grillo for like a top 5, and he like missed the cut, but like just shot like an 83. And I was like, I should just fully quit my entire career. But anyways, the Zurich Classic this past weekend, TBC Louisiana. Cantlay and Schauffele wire-to-wire victory from round 1 all the way down to round 4. Shot a 59, the first in tournament history for anybody, especially after it became a team event in 2017. Some other big-time names in the field, Billy Horschel and Bermuda Burns, managed to find their way into a second-place finish, locking me in for a top 5 that week. Pretty solid week this week, but of course, the story comes down to Cantlay and Schauffele, 2 of the best golfers in the world. But really, are they? I think this is a good spot to start here. Max, please lead things off with Cantlay's win and Schauffele's win, of course. I think we've come to the determination that there's possibly a chance that Patrick Cantlay, arguably, while he is one of the best in the world, we already know that he's the 4th-ranked player in the world, might be actually one of the most underrated golfers in the world. I think his name alone, that it doesn't line up with the guys like Rahm and Dustin Johnson and Morikawa and all that. I feel like it's like on a lower scale. But what he's done in the last 2 years, especially towards the back end of last season, and now this is really the first event that he's been able to kind of kick the dust up and now possibly go on this magical run towards the PGA Championship. And of course, he had the big start last year at the Memorial. Could we consider Patrick Cantlay one of the more underrated golfers in golf, or do you think his name value is sort of on par with where he is ranked in the world?
I think that in terms of a general standpoint, like, you're not going to necessarily see Patrick Cantlay on SportsCenter unless I guess like he wins like yesterday. But I think in the golf world, people who are watching golf realize that he is for sure one, if not the most consistent golfer over the past 9 months. Now, granted, I saw a stat yesterday that since last August, he leads the PGA Tour in wins with 5. Now, one of those came at the Tour Championship, which is, with the staggered start, technically Jon Rahm and Kevin Na won that event if everyone started on equal footing. And then, of course, yesterday, depending on whether or not you consider yesterday, a Mickey Mouse event or not. But, I mean, he was absolutely on fire to start the year. I mean, he lost in the playoff in Phoenix, which he probably should have won. He played at Pebble Beach when everyone was out in Saudi Arabia that week. Him and Spieth were really the 2 top guys that were in the field that week, and Spieth ended up finishing second. And I think Cantlay he had a top 5 finish. I don't know if it was 4th or 3rd. I can't remember off the top of my head. But, then after that, after the beginning of this year, I was saying to myself, like, this guy, I could see him, winning the Masters. And honestly, that was kind of my pick. And then he kind of went through a rough patch, but we saw, he lost in the playoff last week to Spieth, and then he wins this week. And he became the first player since Dustin Johnson in the FedEx Cup playoffs in 2020, Johnson lost in the playoff at BMW to Rahm on that insane putt, but then he came back and ended up winning the Tour Championship. Now, Schauffele, right, he technically had the best score that week from 0, which I'm sure we're going to get into Schauffele in a couple of minutes. But, yeah, I mean, for sure, I think Cantlay, he really has established himself as one of the top players. I mean, you don't win Player of the Year for nothing. I know that was kind of controversial, especially because he did win Memorial, and Rahm ended up withdrawing, but, that whole COVID fiasco happened. But Cantlay's also a really cool story. I mean, going back to, he was a really highly regarded player, in the early 2010s. Then, unfortunately, his caddy and best friend passed away, got hit by a car in California. And then he's out for, a couple of years with that back procedure. So now for him to come back, I mean, I really think it is one of, the undersold stories on tour this year, or, just in golf as a whole.
Kyle, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's not much more to add to it. I think, like, me being a casual golf fan, like, me knowing Patrick Cantlay's name speaks for itself.
That's
like,
true.
Knowing, like, who that dude is in terms of just, like, name recognition, you can kind of say, yeah, like, he's in that field of, like, the golfers that get talked about. And while he might not be, like, top of the table almost in terms of just, like, the elite guys, like, he's somebody that, like, if you're a casual guy, you see Patrick Cantlay's name, it's like, oh yeah, he's pretty good at golf.
Yeah. Well, I think that the big story here with Cantlay is that he isn't in that, like, echelon where you think of, like, name me 3 golfers. You can ask anybody off the street. I can go to Manhattan. Like, name 3 golfers. Obviously, they're going to say, let's say, oh, Tiger and Phil. But, like, the third is going to be someone like Jordan Spieth, or it's going to be Rory McIlroy, or I guess, like, Bryson is sort of, like, in that category now. Brooks is certainly there. But, like, if you look at the top 10 golfers in the world, basically everybody except Patrick Cantlay's name doesn't, like stand out. And I think maybe it's, like, it's going to sound weird. I think it's, like, maybe it's his face. Like you can, like, recognize a lot of guys by their face. Cantlay's, like, one of those, like, more low-key guys. He isn't on social media, really. He isn't very active. He's very much kind of in the weeds and does his own thing. He doesn't talk to anybody. So maybe it's, like, it's that, like, that light demeanor. But I don't know how at this point, and I said this weeks ago, I think when Cantlay actually went toe-to-toe with Spieth and wound up losing to Tom Hoge at Pebble Beach, I was like, there's a time to shake up the World Golf rankings when Rahm was number 1. Obviously, now we have Scheffler at 1, but you really can't not put Cantlay in that 1, 2, 3 talk. And I think he's currently 4th right now behind Morikawa and Rahm. I just think he's so good and so talented, and he really is one of the most consistent guys on tour. I'm pretty sure he hasn't missed a cut in, I don't know, 9 weeks, 10 weeks. Like, it's been a ridiculous span for someone who is young. He's talented. He's probably the best putter right now on tour. He's probably next to Cameron Smith, averaging the most strokes gained putting. But the guy's absolutely ridiculous. But then on the other side of things, you want to talk about guys who might be the most overrated golfer. You look at Xander Schauffele, and you're like, what the hell's going on here? Zephyr Melton had a great tweet, and I was the first one to hop on it, and John fought me tooth and nail on it. Really sad he isn't here to debate it. And so I'm just going to read it here. He had a tweet that in all of his wins in his career, he won in 2017 at Greenbrier, won in 2017, won the Tour Championship in the pre-net format, so he had the low score, didn't particularly win it though. He won the World Golf Championship, HSBC Championship, which was a limited field event. He won the Tournament of Champions, which is also a limited tour event in 2019, and Zurich this year. Among his other wins, he won the 2020 Tour Championship with the low gross score, so he won outright, and he won the Olympics. So, with all that being said, he's only won one full field event, which came at the Zurich. He's won one stroke play event that was full field at Greenbrier, and everything else has been basically a watered down win. And I'm going to give him credit here. Yeah, you won the Tour Championship technically twice, which is impressive considering it's the top 30 golfers in the world, technically speaking, based on FedEx Cup points. So you're clearly facing a challenging field. But is it safe to say that maybe, just maybe, because of all the watered down wins and maybe the appeal that Schauffele brings every single major, every single week, he's always high up on the board, he's sort of been overrated in terms of the way he's portrayed in the public eye and how he is actually performing on the golf course?
Yeah, definitely. Sorry. Yeah, I agree. I mean, every single win essentially is watered down, and I said that yesterday when he won. I mean, you could pick apart every single one of his victories and say, like, is this a legitimate victory? So basically, what he has to do now is he has to back it up, and he has to go out. He either has to win a major, and I think another reason why people do kind of put him, honestly, going back to our past conversation, I mean, if you talk to casual golfers, are they going to know Xander Schauffele or are they going to know Patrick Cantlay first? I feel like he kind of has the stature. Maybe it's because, he performs really well in majors, even though without winning. Does he have like 9 top 10s or something in majors or something around that number? So, that does for itself, although he did not, win any of those, which is obviously the goal. So I guess, he is doing something right if he is winning these events, whether it be, a limited field event like the Tour Championship, winning a team event like yesterday. So, you kind of, you got to give him some credit because he's doing things that, there's tons of other golfers haven't been able to do. And, on top of that, he is putting up good results. But, now what he has to do eventually is he has to go and win, a full. It doesn't, even if it's not a major. I mean, if he can go out and win, the Travelers, or I'm trying to think of, higher level. I mean, he's not going to go play John Deere. But a substantial full field PGA Tour event that's coming up this summer. I mean, like I said, the Travelers. Am I missing one? Maybe if he plays Byron Nelson in a couple weeks, something like that. And then I think he would really slide tall as doubters, even without a major win.
So this is John's argument, and I'll sort of play advocate for this side. I do think he's a little bit overrated based on what the wins tell you, but I do think that there is credit to be had. He is certainly a top 15 player in the world. There's no doubt about that. Is he better than some guys who are lower than him? I would argue probably not, and I'll pull up the world golf rankings in a bit. But based on John's answer, he's a Olympic gold medalist. So right there, pretty impressive. He's the first rookie to win the Tour Championship. Also pretty impressive. 9 top 10s in majors in only 5 years. No worse than 8th in strokes gained total over the last 3 seasons. And he has a WGC win, which not many guys can say they have that. On top of the fact that he's won a Tour Championship, only 5 guys in the history of golf actively have won both a WGC and a Tour Championship. So right there, it's a pretty extensive resume. But also, you look at the official World Golf Rankings, and I'll pull it up right here. Some of these names that I feel are behind him, and as of last week, Jordan Spieth was on that list. Matsuyama, I would argue, is probably better. He actually is better than him. The guy has 3 wins in the last 6 months. Like, already, there you go. Matsuyama. Billy Horschel has been on fire lately. Joaquin Niemann is probably the best young golfer that isn't named Colin Morikawa and Scottie Scheffler right now. Like, is he better than Schauffele? Yes, as of right now, form-wise, but maybe not on name recognition alone. Koepka, DeChambeau, they're kind of in their own sort of little bubble area. You have guys like in the 20s who I think aren't particularly as good, but the recent form says that they are. Berger being one, Fitzpatrick, Fenow, Shane Lowry obviously has been on a tear. I think he has like 9 top 25 finishes consecutively, which is like ridiculous, dating back to last year's Open. So a lot of guys who kind of fall around the Schauffele era in terms of current skill set, but to still be the 12th ranked golfer in the world and be playing the way that you are and have been climbing the ladder all these years, but to not only really have one full field win doesn't really strike me as anything too impressive. And you know what? I'm going to call it a Mickey Mouse win. I'm going to say that the Zurich was not carried by Cantlay. They certainly both made their shots, but watching it for 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, it was pretty apparent that you kind of saw Cantlay was more in the fairway. He had plenty more shots on approach that were really better. Schauffele made the putts, but Cantlay was just simply playing to his best, and I think that's kind of where the line gets drawn here between Cantlay and Schauffele and how overrated Schauffele could be. Kyle, do you have any inputs here as the casual golf fan?
I mean, Schauffele's name also like comes up in my brain when I think like golfers and everything. I'm like trying in my brain, like you knowing me, trying to equate him to like a baseball player almost, where like he's in that discussion in like the top 15, but like doesn't have the full blown accolades in terms of just like overall trophy case or that type of thing.
I'm not gonna go as far to say he's like Trevor Story because Trevor Story is just
That's what I was. Swear to God, that's what I was just gonna say. That's the first name that came to mind.
Look, I'm no baseball pod guy. I'm not on Talking Yanks with John Boy, but I'll tell you this much: Trevor Story, his home road splits in Colorado were so putrid. I'm not gonna put Schauffele on the kind of level that he is. You got to realize like Trevor Story hit like 300 at home at Coors Field. I'm pretty sure last year he batted like 207 on the road. He was abysmal. Like, granted, like the numbers and everything, like were pretty much adequate, but it was the batting average that was just so off the mark bad. The thing is like Schauffele is good when it matters, kind of like Brooks Koepka. Really, they're really good in majors. They always perform well, and they're always pretty good in the marquee events. It's just they don't have the clutch gene to win. You've seen it every single time Schauffele set out on a course the last year and a half. He's been in contention. He cannot make the big shot. He found the water at Augusta against Matsuyama, basically locked up his win. He found the water again at Pebble Beach last year as well. Couldn't get it done. There are so many different opportunities that he's had, and he's just squandered every single one of them. And I think at that point, it becomes more a problem of he has the skill, but he doesn't have the ability to win the big event when it matters the most.
I might sound dumb here, so I'm prefacing this.
There's no such
might
thing.
Sound dumb.
There's no such thing as a dumb answer, just dumb people. So
I might get called a dumb person for this.
Okay, let's hear it.
Is he young Clayton Kershaw? Where Kershaw couldn't get it done in the playoffs. He got a Mickey Mouse World Series win.
Kershaw couldn't get it done in the playoffs for like 12 years.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what? Schauffele's like 32. Like, he's still young. He's like in that like middle ground of like of guys.
But like that's what I'm saying. Like in that like range of like where Schauffele's career has been and where Kershaw's career has been, and then they both get the Mickey Mouse wins.
Elite level golfer hasn't been able to get the big wins when it matters the most. Yeah, I think it's pretty adequate.
The only thing I would say is Kershaw was, even though he couldn't get the big out in the playoffs, I mean, he was by far the best pitcher in baseball. I mean, he was raking in Cy Young after Cy Young award after Cy Young award. I think you can make that comparison if maybe Schauffele was just killing it and winning all these big events nonstop. But, I think that really, and then if he couldn't get it done in the majors, then maybe we can make that comparison. But I still I'm trying to think of a player that's.
Well, hold on. Not for nothing though, but throughout the entire season, like you got to realize, prior to him now being the 11th ranked golfer in the world, he was as high as 4th going into the Genesis. And like here, and the perfect example here. Look at his scores from. We'll go literally from the Tour Championship, last year, right? Technically finished first for the 72-hole score. Finished 5th at the U.S. Open, 2nd at the CJ Cup, tied for 17th at the Zozo and the Masters. Then this whole season, 5th at the Century, 2nd at the Farmers, 2nd at the Waste Management, 15th at the Genesis, 39th at Concession. This is last year. Missed the cut at the Players, still rolling through. 18th at the Match Play, 3rd at the Masters, 14th at the Wells Fargo, 11th at the Memorial, 7th at the U.S. Open. He won the Olympics. Then you come into this year, 18th, 28th, 12th, 12, 34, 18, 3, 13, missed the cut at the Players, 12, 35, missed the cut at the Masters. It's almost actually been, last year was just so good, and now he's sort of almost fallen off a cliff because he only has 3 top 15s in 8 events this year. And when you really think about it, like the top placements, the Hero World Challenge was a 20-man field. The Phoenix Open was a full field. I'll give him that. But the Valspar wasn't that like full field big time event. There was only 8 guys in the top 50 playing that week. So it's a washed down field a little bit, kind of. Largely because it was the hangover event after the Players, but still, like how far can we go before we say Schauffele is not deserving of a top 10 placement in the World Golf Rankings? I think the question kind of lies there. But we'll see where things go. We'll figure things out. as we move on to the Mexico Open and we go further on into the year. And who knows, maybe you'll prove us all wrong and go win at Southern Hills, and then we'll all have to shut up. But until that happens, as I make a terrible transition here, some news across the PGA Tour that we must talk about. Of course, what is a show without talking more Saudi Arabian golf? 70 players have signed up for the first Greg Norman LIV golf event that's set to kick off, tip off, shoot off, whatever the word is.
Tee off.
Thank you. I'm so dumb. I'm a golf podcast host. I'm ridiculous. June 9th to the 11th at the Centurion Club in London, England. I think today or tomorrow is the last day PGA Tour players can request permission to play in the event. So basically, the whole field is basically filled out as of today. It's to be seen whether or not the PGA Tour will allow it. If they don't and they go play anyways, then they'll be banned. Probably, according to Jay Monahan. If they do accept it, they'll probably still be banned. Whatever happens at this point. But 70 names have gone. 15 of the top 100 players in the world. Don't know most of them yet, although we do obviously have connections to Bubba Watson, Kevin Na, Jason Kokrak, Lee Westwood, and Ian Poulter, according to some reports from last week. But the one name that we do know will in fact be signing up is who else but Phil Mickelson. After 3 months of exile from the PGA Tour, he's finally back in the headlines, requesting to join the Greg Norman first event. Guys, what do we think of it?
Well, I mean, it's kind of expected. I don't know if you guys saw the comment from his agent today saying that, he filed an entry to play that event, and then he also filed entries to play the PGA and the U.S. Open. And, his agent said basically that it's not a decision that he's coming back, but rather he's just keeping all his options open. So he's obviously has been tied to this, to LIV. I still call it the Super Golf League or the Saudi Golf League from what we were doing 2 months ago. But
it's what it is, honestly. It's
I mean, but I think I don't know, because I feel like there's two directions that Phil can go in right now. The first one, he could say like basically behind Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson is the guy pretty much, and I think he can go in either two directions. The first one, he could say, all right, I basically, I have a big blemish now on my legacy, so I'm going to dive back into the PGA Tour. I'm going to do everything the right way. I'm going to, kind of, repolish my legacy, and maybe, I'll play some champs events, and, I'll kind of work my way towards being the darling of the sport, which, essentially he's been, especially last year after he won the PGA. And then, up until he made his comments in February, well, technically he made the comments last year, but they were leaked in February. Or he could just say, basically, screw it. I have completely tarnished my legacy. I was going to go all in on this thing. Now I'm going to back off because basically, the whole world hates me. And, I'm no longer, sponsored by Callaway and Workday and KMPG. So, I think he could just go all in and say, screw it. I screwed everything up, so I might as well go make, a boatload of money as opposed to, dabbling my way on the senior tour next to, Jim Furyk and Bernard Langer. So it's interesting to see which direction he's going to go into. I honestly, I really don't know. I think, though, and I'm not saying I, agree with what he said. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are like, it's cancel culture. But, I think he's paid a pretty hefty price, and after, especially, I loved watching the PGA last year. I thought that was one of the coolest things I've ever watched in my life. I really mean that. For me, honestly, and I know there's a lot of people that probably would disagree with this, it was on par with Tiger in 2019 at the Masters. Like I honestly found him more shocking than Tiger because Phil's been out of contention for so long, and then he just comes out of nowhere and becomes the oldest player to ever win a major. So I think, though, he really should be on hand at Southern Hills next month.
I mean, to me, it's I don't have an opinion yet, and I do think that it's wrong of him to not want to be a part of the PGA again. This is where he's made his bread and butter. Obviously, there's been no other tour to really rival this, but what really is stopping him from wanting $130 million to sign on with? And honestly, realistically, yeah, he might not be the top 100 golfer in terms of like the guys like Bubba and Poulter and Kevin Na, but you're certainly going to make the most money if you sign on. Obviously the promises and signing bonus pools, although like no one's really committed yet. All they've ever done was request permission to join the event for the week. That isn't per se saying, "Oh, I'm going to sign on to the tour." In which case, does the signing bonus idea kind of fall out the window? I don't really know. I have no idea where Greg Norman's head is at, but it's obvious that pretty clear they will in fact get suspended and excommunicated from the PGA Tour, as what Jay Monahan says. I think there's actually a pretty good shot he might just move on, because the money in the Tour Champions is not enough for him to make a killing in an area where the fields are not going to be nearly as strong as what he plays at now, and he's going to basically be in contention every single week at 55, 60 years old. Kyle, what are you thinking?
Well, not to interrupt the discussion, we have breaking golf news on the college tour.
Oh boy.
North Carolina A&T's very own J.R. Smith has been named Academic Athlete of the Year at North Carolina A&T with a 4.0 GPA.
I think the greatest part about J.R. Smith is the fact that he became the first athlete to get sponsored by Lululemon, and like 80% of the tour wears Lululemon if they aren't sponsored already by the Under Armours and the Polos and the FootJoys of the world. How this guy managed to get in on an NIL deal is so funny. And so many people were like, kind of like, there was one tweet, it was like, oh, like, how many pro golfers are so upset right now that J.R. Smith is stealing the thunder of getting one of the biggest golf leisure brands? Ridiculous.
J.R., he's a legend, and he's certainly one of the white whales that I have for this podcast for you guys to have on as a guest.
How fun would it be to see like J.R. Smith and like Harry Higgs in a group together?
They'd both be shirtless.
Two of my white whales, definitely. Well, Harry's like first and foremost.
That would be all-time like four-man pairing: you, John, Harry Higgs, and J.R. Smith.
Oh my god! That would,
skins game only though, no shirts.
I'm afraid how that would we go skinnies, Stubbs versus Stumps?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like it's John and JR versus you and Harry.
I think we could win.
That's like a white whale content piece right there. If we could ever have that happen, my goodness.
I look too much like Harry Higgs and to like legitimately be like confident that on video you can tell us apart.
And I mean, we could have Harry Higgs fill in for LeBron and recreate the meme on a golf course. Where LeBron's like pointing at JR.
That would actually be absolutely incredible. Hold on, my brother's texting me. Well, all right, really fast before we have to take our first break here because we're already so far into it. A couple of updates from the golfing world as I run through these like a update anchor. Nasa Hataoka, hopefully didn't butcher that name, closed the 5-stroke lead over Hannah Green. She ran away with the DIO implant LA Open at the Wilshire Country Club on the LPGA side. Over on the men's side in Europe, Paolo Larrazabal fired an 8 under 62 to claim his 7th DP World Tour win, first in his home country of Spain, won the ISPS Handa Championship. Scott Perel on the champion side earned his 2nd Champions Tour title, defeating Gene Sowers and Steve Alker to win the inaugural Club Corp Classic and a playoff. Speaking of Club Corp, do you guys know that they are changing their name to Invited because they're trying to cater to younger, more diverse golfers? Apparently, like country club membership rates, like the average age has gone from like deceased to like 30 years old. A little fun fact. And then also, of course, out of Texas for the Club Corp Championship, the celebrity side, one of the funniest things I've seen all week. Tony Romo beat out pro tennis player Marty Fish and beat LPGA legend Annika Sorenstam to win the Celebrity Open at the Club Corp Championship. Some guys he also beat out: Vikings receiver Adam Thielen, Derek Lowe, John Smoltz, and newly retired pitcher John Lester in the field this week. Apparently, AJ Pierzynski is also a nasty golfer. I don't know where it is with baseball players and golf.
There's
so good.
There's a bunch of people that go to Lake Tahoe in the summer and play in like this like charity event. Pat McAfee is golfing in it this year. AJ Hawk is always there. Like Aaron Rodgers is always there. So a lot of like the athletes go to that and like play together and like link up. Like Pat McAfee taught Scottie Pippen how to shotgun a beer at that event.
It's ridiculous. Well, hey, if anybody is interested, I have officially signed up as of like 2 weeks ago to join the Pro-Am field at the LPGA ShopRite Classic. I have not been approved yet, but I very well might be in the Pro-Am, and I will, in fact, have to get in the whole distinction if they happen to show it on TV.
Let's go.
They'll be like, oh, Stephen McAvoy getting the whole podcast, paired up with, like, Lexi Thompson. I'll be like, yeah! Shanks the first tee box. Oh, my God. Yeah, so I've officially signed up. Sent John the link. Hasn't seen it yet, I don't think, because he hasn't responded to it. But we'll see if we...
That's electric.
Down in, what is it, Galway, New Jersey, I think it is?
Yep, it's about 40 minutes away from my house.
Huge. So very excited for that one. We're going to take our first short break. When we come back, the Mexico Open, everything you got to know about it, and, of course, some betting picks from yours truly. Stay tuned. It's the Getting the Whole podcast from Underground Sports Philadelphia. We are back, folks. My hat's off. It's time for some more Get in the Hole talk. We're going to go all the way down to the Mexico Open, but before we do that, Max, I got to ask you, you're a music guy. You and I used to listen to West Side Gun back in the old college apartments. So on the Zurich Classic, one of the big things that happens down in New Orleans, obviously it's the music city, or it's one of the music cities of the world. Every single team on Sunday comes out to a walk-up song, and unfortunately they didn't have them released last week, so I couldn't quiz John on this, but we're going to play a little game of Hey Siri Play. It's I'm going to give you some songs. You got to tell me what team walked out to said song. Unfortunately, due to some copyright infringement stuff, we will not be able to play said songs, but you probably know the tunes, I would hope. We're going to start off with a pretty easy one. We'll go with All of the Lights by Kanye West. Can you guess what team walked out to that jam on the first tee at TPC Louisiana?
All right, here we go.
What do you think? You know, yeah. I'll give you a hint for every single for every team. A pair of English golfers, one of which has won a major.
Was it? No, Larry's Irish.
Larry's Irish. Yes.
So that would not work. Pair of English golfers. Already, like the field's already out of. I just wanted to get that event out of my head. Like I'm so excited to move on past it. That can bring us to the top. But who is English? Who's paired together that was English? I'm trying to think. No Blandy.
Nope, no Blandy.
Was Fitzpatrick in the field?
He was not. There's actually only one pairing that of two Englishmen. So this is a layup, if you know it.
I honestly can't. Fleetwood was in the field, right?
He was not. Well, no, he was, but he was with Sergio. It's Tyrrell Hatton and Danny Willett.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I could see that from Hatton. You know, he's a little bit of a nut in a good way or a bad way, depending on how you look at it.
Next up, we got Uptown Funk by Bruno Mars. One of the players had made an ace at the Waste Management, and the other has some pretty sick hat flow.
Sam Ryder.
Do you remember his partner?
And his partner was
another R for the last name.
It wasn't Chez.
No, it was Doc Redman.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. They did well.
They did do well. Good song too. I actually really appreciate it. All right, here we go. Touch the Sky by Kanye West and Lupe Fiasco. One of these guys, I believe, is Austrian. Was a late add to the field, and one of them is, he was one of the top amateur players over the last 3 or 4 years. It was like him and a couple of other Asian golfers who they're like a trifecta of like big time amateurs.
Of amateurs.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like Sanjay Ayn.
No. It was
Austrian.
Doug Gim, and Matthias Schwab.
Oh, okay. I was going to say like Straka was in the field.
Sepp Straka. Well, what a name. All right. Devastated by Joey Badass. Two of the big time golfers in the on the PGA. One of them has a great Twitter presence.
Homa?
Max Homa, and do you know his partner?
He's a
frequent name drop on the show.
Who's his partner? I can't even remember any of these. Maybe it's because you're putting me on the spot. I'm getting a little nervous. Who's his partner? Was it Billy Horschel?
No, it's Taylor Gooch. No.
Oh yeah.
All right, well, one more because I'm boring the viewers to death. Our winning team.
I am because I'm taking forever to answer them.
Our winning team, Cantlay and Schauffele. Could you guess the song that they would have came out to? The song. If you can guess, like a song that was like made for the two of them.
Made for the two of them, so it has to be somewhat. I want to say boring, but that's a little bit of an insult. They deserve a little.
It is boring. It's a very boring song. It's a very iconic song, but it's a very boring song.
I have no idea.
House of the Rising Sun.
Interesting.
Like, wait, you don't know it?
No, I know it.
So yeah, so House of the Rising Sun. Some other elite songs that came out. Ryan Brehm and Mark Hubbard, Fortunate Son by Creedence Clearwater Revival. Keegan Bradley and Brandon Steele, Bulls on Parade. Honestly, probably my favorite one, and I didn't bring it up for a reason. As you know, Victor Hovland loves heavy metal, and Colin Morikawa tweeted out that they were looking for a song. Someone appropriately requested Jeroen Sandstorm, and what happened? They came out to that very song because clearly Colin was not going to deal with Victor's shit with playing some like super heavy metal screamo, like raggedy wild music. So that didn't happen. But let's go on now. Past all the fun stuff. It's the Mexico Open this week. The first time this event will take place on the PGA Tour, the inaugural event. They'll hopefully be here a couple more times in the future. Obviously, no more WGC Mexico Championship. That's totally done with. But we're on to the new and revived Mexico Open. Ironically, played at a golf course by a guy who is no longer associated to the PGA Tour, Greg Norman. The Shark made this one. There isn't a lot of information to talk about on this golf course, so we're going to kind of skip over the course confidential stuff. Obviously, like to talk about what this event is about, essentially, the only things to know about this golf course, and no one actually has anything on it because there's no statistical analysis. It's windy. There's like 55 fairway bunkers. It's heavily guarded by waste areas, but the fairways are huge. You should be able to find it pretty well. I believe actually there was here. This is a quote directly from the website of the actual golf course that I will read off right now and kind of give you an idea of exactly what the course is about. According to the course description, Paspalum grass covers the entire layout, winds along the Amico River, and provides views of the Sierra Madre Mountains from almost every single hole. The course is a large landing areas, but sandy waste areas and numerous water hazards await to catch shots of stray too far away. The water also adds a strategic element to many holes, as do the 55 total bunkers that dot the golf course. And of course, this golf course is in one of the iconic shark designs of Greg Norman. Obviously, that's like his logo. He's strategically made some of the holes look like a mini shark. I don't know why he does that, but he does that at like every course he makes. Don't know why. There's like one course in Florida that is legitimately a shark. Like you go around and it's like the edging of a shark. It's weird. But anyways,
did you watch the 30 for 30?
I didn't actually. KB said to DVR it, but like I live in 2022 and DVRs are so like 2010s. So I didn't get a chance to watch it. I'm probably gonna watch tonight before bed, but I haven't gotten a chance to do it. The one thing I will say though, and I thought was really funny, I saw a clip of it. For some reason, like just to torture Greg Norman more, they made him go back to the same spot that he lost the Masters at. And just stand there and stare out at Augusta National. Like, how much of an a-hole do you got to be for ESPN to be like, What?
He was on the course like for majority of he literally like kind of walked through like hole by hole. So
Which is
it was interesting. But yeah, it was definitely torturous.
It'll be a very good watch. Probably going to comment more on it next week after I watch it, but certainly something that I'll be keeping my eyes out for. Let's talk about this field because there's no other way to say this, but this is the worst field you may have ever seen in the history of golf. I want to start with the betting odds here because this kind of shows how bad it is. You compared it to the Bermuda Championship from like October, November, right? Well, this was the field that week in comparison to this week. And just in terms of betting, plus 1,000 for Matt Fitzpatrick, 12-1 Christian Bezadenhout, 16-1 Mito Pereira, and then 20-1 Patrick Reed, James Power. Some other good names were in the field. Adam Hadwin, pretty relevant. Danny Willett, Patrick Rogers, and anybody else? Sahith Theegala at that point at plus like 5,000. This field, though, takes on a whole new definition of how a bad field can be. And the only reason why this field might be a little bit better is because the world number 2 is for some reason in this field. I don't really know why.
Tomorrow.
What?
It's until he withdraws tomorrow.
Well, no, Daniel Berger's already withdrawn due to an injury, which I'm pretty sure was just his way of saying this field sucks. Get me out of here. Yeah, but here's a current look at the field, folks. If you are looking to bet this week, plus 450 for John Rahm. That's like looking at like I can get better odds right now on the Celtics to sweep the Nets. Like it's like kind of embarrassing. Plus 1,500, a almost 1,000 point jump all the way to Abraham Answer, obviously native of Mexico, so he'll be high up on the list. Fenow plus 2,100 with Gary Woodland. Plus 2,400 is Kevin Na, and then Patrick Reed at plus 2,600. And then the field basically just dips off, and it goes all the way up to like plus 3,400 for Chris Kirk, Aaron Wise, Sebastian Munoz, Cam Champ. Like this field goes all the way up to plus a million? No way. 1, 2, 3.
Is that what Matt Everest said?
No, sorry, it's plus 100,000. For some reason, whenever you see all the zeros, like and there's no comma, I can never tell. Some guys at the bottom of the odds board here: Jose Antonio Safa, Santiago de la Fuente, Turk Pettit, Manuel Inman, Jose Cristobal Islas, Mark Hensby, Brett DeWitt, and Jonas Blixt somehow finds his way on the bottom of the board with like Bo Van Pelton and Grayson Murray, the hardcore Republican. This field sucks. Like, I'm like amazed at how bad this field is. Max, like, walk me through this. Why? Why is it so bad?
Because I actually read today, it's 2,500 miles away from Louisiana. So it's essentially like having a tournament in, I mean, I guess you wouldn't have it. I mean, not as far as, when they went from Genesis to Honda, from California to Florida. But I mean, you're looking at like, if it was in maybe like Arizona, if like the Phoenix Open and then they went to, then they went to PGA National or wherever. So that could be one reason. But then again, there were a lot of people who were sitting out last week in New Orleans. So, I mean, it's kind of sandwiched in between, you had last week and then you have in 2 weeks, right? It's going to be the Wells Fargo. It's going to be the Byron Nelson right before the PGA. So, there's some decent-ish events coming up. So, like, why would anyone really want to go travel to a course that no one's ever played before? I'm sure conditions are going to be wild considering it's, kind of on the water from what I've seen. And it's a little bit of a hike. I mean, it's not like they're, going, right across the border. Like it's a hike.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I find interesting though is like, there's the Wells Fargo, which is probably it's the biggest event until the PGA, which everyone's going to be going up to Potomac and playing there. There's obviously no doubt about it. It's one of the more famous courses on tour anyways, but like the Mexico Open, the Byron Nelson, like at Craig Ranch, not a huge field usually. It's usually one of those like watered down fields, nothing crazy. Guys are getting ramped up for the PGA, but then again, this is the first time obviously the PGA is going to be right here in Southern Hills in Oklahoma, so it really isn't that far away. like this is the part of the calendar where outside of like that little like clip before the Open, like the John Deere, the Scottish, and the Barbasol, like not a lot of guys are playing in these fields, and it's kind of weird because there are some guys in this field like John Rahm. I think is a perfect example. First of all, it's like a vacation week. It's like a vacation week for him. He had off last week, so he was hanging out with Kepa the whole week. Now he gets to go basically on a week vacation and just pummel the field in Mexico. You get to go hang with the family. But also, it's kind of a get right week because he hasn't had that form. He did not play particularly well at Augusta. This is his first start since then. Finished 27th and was basically out of contention the entire week from day one. So it's sort of a get right week for him. Same thing with someone like Patrick Reed, who has not been particularly good in the last, I don't know, month and a half or so. Abraham Answers missed 4 straight cuts. For someone who's been wildly consistent, has not been able to really get it done. Tony Fenow has been underplaying expectations ever since he won at the Northern Trust. Has not been playing the same kind of golf that everyone wanted him to do. And then it's like Gary Woodland, who's actually been pretty consistent and has been somewhere towards like mid-20s tier for the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks. Clearly was much higher up on the board towards the Arnold Palmer. But like the field here just simply, it's a lot of guys who are mid-level players, and the guys at the top are the guys who are looking to kind of get back into form. And that's really the best way to kind of describe it. It's basically an alternate field event, I would basically call it, but also it has the distinction of possibly being a good event because it's a brand new golf course, and you hope that new players will want to come and play it. But I think it's also because of the variability of it, and also like the course designers, like the maintenance staff, they're not making it too easy, but they're also not making it too hard because you don't want to have an event that's going to play to like 10 under par in its debut. You're going to want it to play into to 20 under or so. So they might be making it almost too easy for some guys to be like, all right, maybe this really isn't the get right week. Like this is an event for like Ricky Fowler to go out and try and perform, which he is not this week, which makes no sense to me. But at the same time, it's still an event that they're hoping to kind of get off the ground. Obviously, we've seen some first-time events this year already take off with rousing success, and now the Mexico Open just simply doesn't really get the hype, which I somewhat understand, but at the same time, it is what it is. So we'll see what happens. But before we get into some bets this week, as we are already almost an hour into our show, bets are going to be coming up in about probably 10 minutes. But we got to talk about who's hot and who's not coming into this week. It's our edition of Whomst is hot and Whomst is not. Max, let's talk some guys who have been a little off their game this week. I think Tony Finau is the best place to start. What's been the deal with Tony Finau the last few weeks? Why has he been so out of shape? What's been the key to Finau's demise over the last few weeks? Has not been able to place top 20 in about 4 weeks.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think he's just going through the motions. I feel like you've seen this a lot from Tony Finau throughout his career. I mean, he had that first win, and then he didn't win again until last August at the Northern Trust, which you and I were both at. So I feel like that's just kind of his career. I mean, I have to pull up. I should pull up what he's done this year, but I last year too. Like I remember, I was at the Travelers, and I was watching the group with him, Brooks, and Dustin Johnson. And Brooks and DJ were kind of, on their game. Dustin Johnson at the time was the world number 2. It was the first week after the U.S. Open that Rahm overtook him for world number 1. But he looked broken. And then, just 2 short months later at the Northern Trust at Liberty National, he came out, he won essentially, that first leg of the FedEx Cup playoffs is essentially equivalent to a major championship field, on par with it. I mean, that's, 150 of the best golfers in the world from the past year. So, I feel like Tony Finau, the one thing about him is I don't think he's ever getting too far in his head. I think he's got his head on straight, the lights on upstairs. He knows what he has to do in order to get back right. And, a week like this is, a perfect opportunity for him, I think.
Yeah, just like looking at the numbers dating all the way back to the CJ Cup back in, what was it, September, October. He placed 45th there, finished 45th in Mayakoba, missed the cut at the Houston. His only top 10 this entire year, and actually only has one top 20 as well, was the shortened field at the Hero World Challenge in his 7th. in the 20-man field. And then in the shortened field at the Century, finished 19th. And since then has placed 40th, 33rd, 29th, and 35th with 3 missed cuts kind of wedged all in between. That has not been a good look for a man like Tony Fenow. And also Patrick Reed, another guy who has been he's the kind of guy who, and I always made this comment, he can go out and not hit a golf ball for like 4 months and all of a sudden win an event. It's just one of the things that just kind of works for him. But even then, his recent results have not been stellar, but by any means. Going all the way back to where else but the Butterfield Championship out in Bermuda, where he finished second, has had only one top 10 finish. Actually, one finish, 2 finishes inside of the top 20. Again, like Fenow, came third at the Hero World Challenge and 15th at the Century. Has finished 55th, 46th, 26th, and 35th with 3 cuts wedged in between. Basically, very similar to Fenow's game. But Patrick Reed has been out of sorts. He's been weird ever since he moved over to PXG, which I think he announced might have been actually at the Bermuda Championship that he switched over to PXG. But nothing's been able to figure out his game over the last 5 weeks. It's been weird.
Yeah, and kind of contrary to Tony Fenow, I feel like Patrick Reed is kind of that guy where you don't really know what's going on upstairs. You don't know if it's a mental thing.
Ever.
You don't know if it's a mental thing, or you don't know if it's a physical thing with his game. Maybe it's his clubs. So Reed, I could kind of see Reed maybe kind of being on the backside of his career. I mean, he got a major championship. He won the Masters. He's a very polarizing figure within the sport, but, nonetheless, you have to win in order to get the stature that Patrick Reed has in his career. So, but, he's getting on the other side of 30. And, I could see, I don't want to say that he's never going to win again, but, I could totally see him this week, going out an interesting course that he's never seen before in Mexico and just not performing. And essentially the same thing with Tony Fenow too. I think it can go one of 2 ways. It could be, a disaster, or it could go fairly well. And frankly, like when it comes to our picks in a couple minutes, I don't have Tony Fenow contending. I don't have Patrick Reed contending. I mean, contending is I don't have them as part of my picks is what I mean. But because I feel like it can go one of 2 ways. But, I don't necessarily think that Fenow is in or Reed is in for a top 5 or maybe a top 10. But I think that it would be good if they can walk away with a top 20, something to feel good about. Maybe they're saying, all right, maybe there was one round where they shot, 74 or something, and that kind of took them out of contention. But they can still leave Mexico moving forward, going into Wells Fargo, going into the PGA with a little bit of confidence in order to get their game right.
Any chance you find out soon that Patrick Reed is applying to play in the LAV Golf League?
I mean, see, that's the thing. And I know we talked about that before. There's the report from Bob Herring today that 15 of the top, 35 players in the world?
100.
Or top 100. Sorry, not 35. So that's another thing. Like, I have no idea what goes on with Patrick Reed. He's an interesting character. He's a very, difficult person to figure out. So
sort of a hardcore nutcase.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock. I mean, honestly, it makes sense for him to go, but also maybe he's just really devoted to to the history of golf and wants to do the right thing. Especially because he is I say polarizing, but there's a lot of people on the other end of the spectrum on how they feel about him.
Yeah, well, he's certainly polarizing in almost a bad way. I guess you could say he's America's sweetheart supervillain. I guess you could kind of describe him as. Speaking of guys who are hot this week, give me a name, couple of guys that you're looking at this week. Going into Mexico, obviously there isn't a lot of numbers to discuss about Mexico in terms of what we know from course evaluation, but who are some guys who have been pretty hot over the last few weeks or going into this week? I might be looking for a big win down in Mexico.
We want to just get into the picks, or you want me to give you a couple names here?
No, just a couple names before we really hammer home the picks here.
All right, let me pull up the field. I'll try to not get into my picks here, but a couple guys I can see doing well, not part of the picks. What was that?
Don't spoil the picks. They're important.
I won't spoil the picks. I like Saif Tigala. He has become one of my favorite players on tour. And I think that maybe not knowing the course might play a little bit to his advantage because he just seems like a guy that just kind of goes out there, He plays wacky. He does different things. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't work. And, when we saw the Sanderson Farms earlier this year, which was a very weak field, I mean, he finished 8th, but, he had the 54-hole lead. So, we've seen, and then we've seen, the Phoenix Open, where that's one of the top fields of the year, not in a major championship. And he goes out and he almost should have won and just fell short. So he's someone that I really like. Taylor Moore has been playing. I like the way he plays. I think that he's definitely someone that could have a good week. Kramer Hickok, I know I'm a little biased. I was at Travelers. I saw him lose that 8-hole playoff. Everybody was rooting for him, chanting Kramer. Even though Harris English is a pretty cool, pretty likable guy. Does nothing wrong for the most part. On and off the course. But he's kind of an interesting guy because like sometimes Kramer, he comes out, he plays really well, and then sometimes he just absolutely lays an egg and doesn't make the cut. So he's someone where I look at him kind of like the way I'm looking at Fenow and Patrick Reed this week, and I'm saying, all right, this could go one of two ways.
Oh, I think we just lost Max. Oh, nope, there
I'm
he
back
is.
now.
Yeah, what's up?
Yeah. So I think that where was I going? I was going with
Kramer Hickok.
And Adam Schenk too. I mean, he nearly won Barracuda last year, which is an alternate event, which is essentially what this week is. So I think he's someone that could pull through. I'm definitely keeping an eye out for him.
You've managed to list two of the all-name players in one sentence between Adam Schenk and Kramer Hickok. Absolutely incredible. One guy who's actually been really hot lately, and I mentioned him earlier, who I think is going to play really well this week. And I might be going against what I told you and spoiling the picks, but he is certainly going to show up somewhere in my beer money plays as a late ad. Gary Woodland, despite being the fifth ranked player in the field this week, has been on absolute fire. Finished 5th at the Honda, 5th at the Arnold Palmer, 8th at the Valero. Missed the cut at the Masters, but it's whatever. Everyone doesn't play well, particularly at the Masters. Someone listed in the top 15 in the world. Missed the cut at the Players. Doesn't really play well at the big events, but you put him on your average golf course, and he will probably dominate it. He, ironically, in his 9 or 10 starts this year, aside from one event where he finished 39th at the Farmers Insurance, he has either placed top 20 or missed the cut. There's no other deviation, permutation. It's just you're either a top 20 player or you're missing the cut. So I think coming in for hot form, three top 10s in the last 5 weeks for Gary Woodland. He'll be on my radar. We're going to take our final break. When we come back, it's the beer money time. Our best picks coming up right ahead. Do not go anywhere. Final segment here. Beer money time brought to you by our friends over at Kenwood Beer, Philadelphia's light lager. Grab a Kenny, strap in. Max Schreiber filling in for our friend John Mavelli. He's out this week. Max, it's time to make some picks, win some money, and bring home the bacon. Top 20 this week for you at the Mexico Open, which at this point I'm going to call them the Avocados from Mexico Open. Hashtag no sponsor, but honestly, sponsor us. I love guac. Who's your top 20 this week?
I'm going Lanto and Griffin.
Ooh, Lanto. Get any reasons? Any reasons why it's a out there name this week?
So he played pretty well in the California stretch earlier this year. Was in contention, top 5 at the American Express, and then played pretty well at Pebble Beach, but ended up finishing T16. He has had a brutal stretch though, which is why I'm sure you might be scratching your head saying, how the hell did you end up picking him? But I think he's a talented golfer. One thing we didn't talk about with the course, which I'm going to reference a couple times while I make my picks, is it's going to play long. I read it's about 7,500 yards. I almost want to call it a bomber's paradise, but I don't really know the layout, so I don't necessarily know if it's a paradise. So, he averages, 300 yards off of the tee. I think this is a perfect get right for him. Hasn't played in a couple weeks, and kind of, I think that this could be an opportunity for him. He is a PGA Tour winner, won the Houston Open a couple years ago. So, I really think that this is a perfect get right for him. And, I don't necessarily think he's going to win by any means, but, a top 20, and then, we'll see him in contention a couple of times this summer.
This is my favorite event from a betting perspective outside of majors. Obviously, the field isn't good, but it's one of those events that you can certainly find a lot of value super down low on the board. And I wore the hat earlier. I'm going to put it back on because I'm going to be bringing home the bacon this week. My top 20 pick, a guy who's currently ranked 491st in the world, has basically fallen off the goddamn cliff, fallen into Lazarus's pit, and is resurrected like Christ. I'm going with Kevin Chappelle for a top 20 at plus 500 on your usual sports book of choice. A half decade ago, this guy was on a President's Cup team. He was a good player. Injuries, a litany of them, has just fallen off the map, but has finally come back and has finished top 20 in back-to-back performances, a 15th and 18th. Plus 500, some pretty good value here. Kevin Chappelle for a top 20. Remember the name, folks. He will be coming back sometime later. Who's your top 10 pick this week, Max?
All right, so I went a little back. I'm an indecisive person, so I went back and forth a lot on my top 10 and my top 5. But I'm going to go with Carlos Ortiz for my top 10. I really like the way he played at Mayakoba. He ended up finishing runner-up, but it really felt like losing my train of thought here. It felt like he really loved playing in front of the home crowd. And granted, that week there was really no fans except for like the select few that the tournament played. And that was a really strong field too. That was probably the second strongest field last fall behind the CJ Cup, which another thing, going back to Alonso Griffin, he played really well that week. So, he's shown that he can, be up there in some strong fields. And obviously this week is not. But going back to Carlos Ortiz, Abraham Answer, I think he's gonna have a good week. I don't necessarily think he's gonna miss the cut or anything, but Ortiz that week, and keep in mind he was playing hurt. The following week after Mayakoba last year was the Houston Open. He was the defending champ, and he had to withdraw, which was a really tough decision for him because that was his first opportunity for him to be playing, and maybe it could have been his only opportunity for him to play an event as a defending champion. So for him to finish runner-up on his home turf and then not go and play Houston and be the defending champion up there at Memorial was definitely a tough decision for him. But I think that, he hasn't been playing that great this year, but I could see him coming out in his home country and with a top 10.
Yeah, Carlos Ortiz has not made a cut in 4 straight weeks. Very interesting pick here. You're going with the super low floor, high upside guys. I really like it. A little hot take here. I really do think Abraham Answer might very well miss the cup this week. Has been so bad in the last 5 weeks, and I think the home crowd is going to play to his almost disadvantage. So top 10 this week, I'm going with the guy who we haven't seen since the Valero. Didn't play particularly well for about 2 months. Was one of 3 guys to break the PGA record for lowest strokes to par in a PGA Tour event at the Century. Obviously, two of the guys are in this event. One of them is not. That's Cameron Smith. And I'm going with the guy who isn't at plus 450. I'm going with Matt Jones for a top 10 this week at plus, wait for this, 700. A really good number here from Matt Jones for the Aussie. He finished runner-up at the Valero, played really well at a very challenging golf course prior to the Masters. Made the field, was not very significant in Masters play. So unfortunately did not really get a chance to see much of him. But the one thing about Matt Jones that's really interesting, and the only course comparison that I can really give this course, obviously, is Mayakoba. But also Bermuda is a pretty relatively similar course, solely on the wind pattern. Like you said, 7,500 yards, par 72. The fairways are very wide, so it is a low-key bomber's paradise, but also you're playing most holes into the wind. So the power does certainly help. Matt Jones doesn't necessarily have that, but as someone who played his young career on the Australian Q School circuit, he has a lot of experience playing into the wind, and he plays really well in non-prime condition courses. Obviously, at Kapalua, played pretty well, was very windy on the only 2 rounds that he shot super low. So I think Matt Jones is a pretty solid play here for a top 10 this week. I don't think he's going to have like the most like sexy line on the planet, but he'll do what he has to do to get things done. This golf course in particular, you want to be able to hit it long or hit it well enough, or shape it well enough in order to counteract the wind, and also have the hot putter. Obviously, he had a pretty hot putter at the Valero, and we haven't seen him do that very often in his career. But I think when he strikes fire, it's pretty clear. He finds the lightning in the bottle. He did it at the Century, did it at the Valero, and he'll do it now this week. Who's your top 5, Max?
All right, so my top 5 here, and now I think going off of my top 10, saying I was flip-flopping between them, you kind of now thinking that I made the right decision with my top 5. I'm going to go Gary Woodland. Like we talked about, dismissing the players in the Masters where he missed the cut in both. I get it. This is neither of those events by not even in the same stratosphere. But he's been playing really well. Obviously, he still hasn't won since the U.S. Open in 2019 at Pebble Beach. He's shown that there's still something in his game. He's able to post up good events. I mean, he nearly won at Bay Hill, which that course played insane. We remember Rory McIlroy after called it crazy golf. So I mean, and also I was going to ask you about this. Do you see maybe any comparison? They're not necessarily on the same level, but maybe Pebble Beach, this course, kind of windy. That kind of obviously, a couple of years ago, Woodland played really well there, but I think he's posted some really good results in some pretty good fields, and he's had right now. I have it up right here. He has a T5, a T8, and a T21. So I think considering all things considered this week, he's going to have a good week.
Well, so actually, like in terms of like course comparisons, I think like Mayakoba is actually another great Norman design course. We always talk about guys play well on courses designed by a certain person. So I'm always going to bring up like the Fazio designs are always really big for a lot of guys who play really well on those courses. Give me another name. The Pete Dye designs, guys always play well on those courses. So if you play well on Great Norman styles, for the most part, they're all in tropical regions. They're in Florida, they're in Mexico, they're in Bermuda, whatever it happens to be. And so guys kind of fit that mantra. It's always very windy because it's always coastal. Obviously, they're always going to play events that are on the nicer side of things. But the course is actually really fascinating, and I think for a top 5 this week, I'm inclined to join you on Woodland, but I'm going to actually shake things up a little bit. I'm going with Sebastian Munoz, and this is kind of where the indecisiveness sort of kicked in. I'm between Munoz and somebody else for my winning pick, and basically whoever I didn't take was going to be the top 5 at this point. But we got to talk here, Sebastian Munoz. He's a investment. The way I kind of look at this, he's plus 600 for a top 5. He's a guy who he's been good, not great, like the whole year. He's kind of been like like Maverick McNeely. I guess you can kind of equate him to someone who's been like really good the whole year, has been finishing in the top 20s, somewhere in that range, but simply can't get good enough to win an event. According to Jason Sobel, he's had all of his results have been between 21st and 39th in his past half dozen starts. It isn't necessarily the consistency that you want, but some guys kind of kill for that to be able to at least have that skill set. So I think a good week. He's Venezuelan. He's from the South American, Central American area. He's used to these sort of conditions when he did play back in Venezuela, and then now playing up here in the States. He's from Texas, from Florida, so he has that like coastal area expertise. I think a top 5 here from Munoz is a pretty safe pick. Before we get to that winning pick, give me your gimme. We talked about it coming in. The pick that if you had a gun to your head, had to pick somebody to win an event or place somewhere, this is your guy. Who is it?
All right, I'm really going out on a limb here. You're going to think I'm crazy for this one.
All right, let's hear it.
Jon Rahm, top 20.
I fucking hate you.
No, I'm kidding. I was still like, it was funny for the listeners. Steve texted me. He's like, give me a gimme. I'm like, what do you mean by a gimme? And he explains it to me, and I'm like, well, Jon Rahm, top 20. I'm like, I mean, if I have a gun to my head, I want to make sure I don't die. That's where I'm going.
You need value on the pick. That's the one thing I'll say. But
true. And the thing I actually digged up earlier today, I was putting together some odds for work. Jon Rahm, by the way, is the lowest odds so far this year out of any event. In terms of being the betting favorite. Plus, of course, I know we use PointsBet, so we have him at plus 450. I don't know what you got him on, Steve. And then also every single event this year that Jon Rahm has played, he has come into the week as the betting favorite, which is, I mean, not that shocking, but he still has not won. So when and where is that win going to come? I still would not be inclined to take it this week, but I definitely think he's he's either gonna have a really bad week or he's gonna have a really good week. I feel like I said that a lot there. But
if he wins this week, this is a more Mickey Mouse win than the Zurich. I'm sorry. Like, there's no way that I can ever be like, first of all, for him to win this week is probably at like minus infinity. Like, I don't know if you could find me a book that somewhere has Jon Rahm not like minus 100,000 to win this week. Again, this is literally like picking the Celtics to lose to the Nets in the playoffs this week. Like, there's no way it happens. And I'm so happy that Ben Simmons will not get his shot to appear in a Nets uniform until next year. Shout out to our boy Kieran, who's probably depressed about that.
I will say though, sorry. So obviously that was a little bit of a Mickey Mouse pick. So I did come up with a second gimme here. I'm gonna go with Chris Kirk, top 20. I really liked what I saw earlier this year. I mean, he had that T7 at the Honda Classic, and then followed that up the following week at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. You kind of talked about it, those tropical courses. Obviously, since those, he's kind of cooled down a little bit. Not terrible. He's made some cuts. So, obviously, he's kind of coming back from some off the course issues a couple of years ago. I think he's really turning a corner with his game, and especially with the field this week, I can definitely see him having a really good week.
That's a really good pick. He has a great driver. He'll certainly be able to hit it far, hit it hard. It's going to come down to really the putter if he can keep it consistent this week. My gimme, not a Mickey Mouse play, but it is a top 20, just like you. I'm going with Gary Woodland at plus 150. It's a pretty safe pick, very easy pick. It's almost free money. He has 3 top 10s in his last 6 events. I think Jason Sobel put it the best. He said that when it comes to picking names for events like this, you have to kind of separate the guys who are playing on like sponsor obligations. They want to get like a PIP rating. They want to get their name out. And then there's guys who like have to play these events because it's either the only way that they could continue to be on tour or whatnot. Woodland's definitely in the latter. He's clearly looking at PIP considerations here this week. He has the skill set to certainly play well. He fits the mold here pretty good. Also is 6th on the odds boards. And Sobel said it here on the Action Network. He said that while he still has some time until he loses the exemptions that he got from the 2019 U.S. Open win, he still has an opportunity here to grow his game and play well and possibly bring it into the PGA and play pretty well. Again, Woodland's plus 210 for a top 10. He's plus 150 for a top 20, and he's even better the higher up you go. I think he's a guy who could win this week. Very well might be an outright bet that I place for like $5, a little sprinkle. But Woodland for a top 20 is just easy money at this point. It's one of those things that you just you look at it and you see a plus money and you're like, I have to take this. So Gary Woodland's my guy here. All right, give me the winner, and please tell me it is not Jon Rahm plus 450.
It is not Jon Rahm, but I guess this is somewhat of a wild card. I'm gonna go Cameron Champ.
Cameron Champ. Yeah, Cameron Champ, I feel like he either finishes last or he's like in contention on Sunday. There's no like other way.
Yeah,
there's no other deviation there.
Mm-hmm, yeah, and he's good odds. Talk about he's what plus 5,000. And I think that he's kind of that guy where he's won 3 straight years, but like he kind of just comes out of nowhere and wins, right? Mm-hmm. So I will say though, he didn't play a lot earlier this year. He was dealing with that injury. It seems like he's healthy. He posted top 10 at the Masters, gets himself a trip back to Augusta for next year. And, I really think that maybe he's the type of guy where, he's someone where like, I'd love to do like a profile because I feel like he's a very, I think he's really good for the game. He obviously does a lot, for the game and, tries to, increase, the amount of minorities that, play golf and stuff like that. And, he hosts some clinics with Tony Fenow. So, I really, I admire him for that. But at the same time, I think he's going to, in terms of on the course, he's obviously one of the longest drivers on tour. We kind of talked about that this is a little bit of a bomber's paradise. And, I think maybe he'll take that top 20, that top 10, at the Masters. Don't want to sell him short here and come out and, and get that win. I think he can do it.
5 of the last, well, actually half of the winners this year on the PGA Tour have been at odds better than 4,000. Tom Hoagie, Luke List, guys in that area who weren't necessarily the highest ranked player in the field, clearly, but managed to come out and thrive. My pick at plus 4,000 to win this week is Aaron Wise. There's only one guy who in the last 3 years has finished top 10 at both the Bermuda Championship and the Mayakoba Classic, and his name is Aaron Wise. He hits it long off the tee. He putts it really well. He's actually the third best ball striker in the field this week, which is impressive considering John Rahm and Gary Woodland and, well, Dale Berger was there. But there's still some good names in this field board. So happens to be that Aaron Wise is one of the young guns who's showing out. Hasn't played incredible. He's been kind of on and off. Finished 21st in his last outing, but has missed the cut in 3 out of 5 weeks. Regardless, this is a get right week for Aaron Wise. He hits a country mile. Will certainly be able to play it against the wind. I've been very bullish on him since he came up out of the Korn Ferry Tour. I think he's got a really good skill set. I think Aaron Wise is a pretty good play tonight. Well, this week tonight. I'm so dumb. Tonight at the. I said it again. This is embarrassing. This week at the Mexico Open, you know what it is? It's like 10 o'clock at night. I've been up since like 4 a.m. I'm not in good shape right now. Anyways, Aaron Wise plus 4,000 is my pick this week for the Mexico Open. What's up?
Nothing.
Oh, folks, that's gonna do it all for us here. Max, another guy named Max Scherzer just went hard. 10 strikeouts, 7 innings with 10 strikeouts. He was nasty today on 101 pitches. Maybe it's the luck of the Maxless. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, the Yankees were off tonight, so I can't complain or gloat about anything they did. I'll have to wait till tomorrow for that.
Oh, so tomorrow I'll text you when IKF is the only guy who's hitting on the team. That's going to do it all for me and Max Schreiber filling in for John Mavelia this week. Just for KB behind the scenes, I'm Steve McAvoy. That's Max Schreiber. We'll see you guys next week as we break down more in the golfing world. This has been the Get in the Hole podcast from Underground Sports Philadelphia. We'll see you next time.